Chapter 7 The Quest Comes to an End. After leaving his father, Galahad rode on toward the Grail castle. Sir Percival was close behind him. Eventually, Sir Bors caught up to Percival, and they searched for Galahad. Percival and Bors rejoiced when they arrived at the Grail castle and found that Galahad was indeed there. King Pelleas took them to a chamber where Galahad was resting. Pelleas welcomed them and blessed them. "You have been steadfast in your pursuit of virtue," the king said. "Soon you will be rewarded." King Pelleas' son, Prince Eleazar, came into the chamber. He held a broken spear. Joseph of Arimathea, the one who brought the Grail to our country, was wounded with the spear. The prince said, "One of you must restore the spear to its original condition." Bors reached for the pieces, but his hand and arm went limp, and he could not grip the pieces. The same thing happened when Percival tried to bring the pieces together. The two knights looked at Galahad and motioned for him to try. In Galahad's hands the spear was made new. The king led the knights to a banquet hall for dinner. Noble men and women from many countries entered the hall after them. After everyone was seated, 4 knights came in, carrying an old man on a bed. The man moaned, "This is my father, King Pellam. Years ago, he received an incurable wound from Sir Balin, which only one true knight can heal." The lights dimmed, and the hall grew silent. The door to the hall opened again. Maidens dressed in white carried candles. Then another maiden entered the hall. She carried a spear. Blood dripped from its tip into a silver vessel, which she held beneath the spear. The Grail maiden came in at the end of the procession. She held the holy vessel. It was covered with a white cloth. Galahad rose and walked toward the maiden holding the spear. He took the spear and went to King Pellam, touching his wound with the tip of the spear. The old man rose from the bed, kneeling before Galahad, and wept. The Grail maiden lifted her hand and gave a sign for Galahad to join her. When he stood in front of her, she held out the Grail. Galahad removed its covering and beheld the vessel. He took a sip of the water it contained. Then he held the Grail up for all to see. His quest was now accomplished. The Grail maiden led the procession out of the hall. The banquet continued in silence. That evening Galahad heard a voice telling him to take his 2 companions and leave the castle. The knights rode night and day until they came to the sea. The enchanted ship was moored there, waiting to take Galahad away. Before he boarded the ship, he embraced Percival and Bors. He asked Bors to give his father a message. "Give my father my blessing. Tell him to remember that this life will pass. Earthly acclaim cannot equal virtue's rewards." Percival and Bors remained on the shore until the ship passed out of sight. Percival decided not to return to Camelot. He turned his horse in the direction of an abbey in which he hoped to spend his last days in prayer and fasting. Bors traveled on alone. When he reached Camelot, the court was somber. So many knights had died in the quest. The news that Galahad had achieved it was received greatly. Arthur asked Bors and Lancelot to relate their stories so that all would know the quest of the Holy Grail, and that a knight of the Round Table was the one to achieve it.